This is the WAIL Podcast. We're your hosts, Jon Steuber
and Rob McCalla, and this is why you're listening.
Welcome to the WAIL Podcast. This is our Beyond the Bio edition. Today in studio we have William Mahan with Black Label Producers, EXP Realty. He is also the team leader of the Mahan Group. William, thanks very much for showing up today.
William and I've known William for a little while, man. I'm excited to have you here. You've got a good story. Everybody's got their own unique story. I love yours. We've talked about it a couple times lately. And so what we want to do is get that out there to everybody else that wants to know a little bit more about who you are. And actually, small world, you and John actually have some things in common because weirdly enough, you grew up in the same area of Washington, D.C., right? I mean, am I incorrect?
Yeah, right outside in good old Springfield, Virginia. Yeah.
We call it the DMV, the D.C., Maryland, Virginia area. It's the Beltway.
I thought it was going to be something derogatory, which I'm sure you can think of a couple acronyms for that area like that.
Some derogatory terms for that.
When were you in D.C.?
Gosh, that would have been 95 to 97, 94 to 97 time frame. So you were there. You were a little bit younger, I think. You were there earlier than that.
I grew up there my entire life.
Okay.
Up until I was 15 years old.
Okay, that's right.
And I moved here when I was 15, but I grew up in Virginia.
What was that like for you?
Northern Virginia, Southern Maryland, D.C. area, that whole metro area. Different, right?
Yeah.
I mean, completely different from here.
From here, yeah, sure.
Busy, populated.
Yeah.
When we talk about schools in general, our biggest schools are Tulsa, Union, and Jenks.
Right.
And you know this. I mean, that's an average high school size out in that area. Yeah, that's an average high school size.
Yeah.
It's just a very populated, massive area, and it's super busy.
So you went straight opposite. Came to Oklahoma.
I went from one extreme to the other.
Oh, man.
Especially in 1997 when I moved here. Oklahoma City wasn't what it was now. What it is now.
Right.
It was completely different. I mean, so
dead.
it was dead.
Yeah.
Right. So when you go from that area,
the hustle and bustle,
to an area that's completely dead, in 1997, I don't think there was even considered traffic in this area. No. You didn't sit in traffic.
No. Well, and you certainly didn't have HOV lanes like you did going into DC. I can remember hearing stories and people getting arrested or not arrested, but getting in trouble because in order to take the HOV, you had to have at least 3 people in your vehicle. So people would put mannequins in their cars and dress them up just to get on the HOV.
That's some shit I would do.
Yeah.
I would do that.
Yeah. My dad took his motorcycle everywhere because he just refused to drive. It would take forever to go to the Pentagon where he was working at the time. So.
Yeah.
Now, we were talking the other day about that journey from the DC area to here and back. Tell me that again. I know you had your folks were pressuring you to come back, and you had some stuff going on when you met your wife in school. What was that journey look like?
So I got to Oklahoma, and I was a sophomore in high school.
Okay.
Obviously hated my parents at that time. Right?
They all, yeah.
Just because I grew up there, and it's tough transitioning, especially in high school, right?
Because your dad moved here for. Did you tell me your dad told your mom, like, hey, if you can get me that job here, I'll go?
Yeah,
and sure as hell she found it. And
unfortunately, my mom's youngest brother passed away in 1997, and we came back from the funeral, and my mom had spent almost my childhood 15 years on the East Coast, and so I on the way back home, she really wanted to make the she really wanted to move back to Oklahoma area, but we were established. My parents were established there, so my dad worked at the National Gallery of Art.
Right.
He's an amazing electrician, lit the Mona Lisa, did all the lighting there, and basically said, well, if you can find me something comparable here, thinking that she wouldn't be able to.
Right.
Hoping she wouldn't be able to.
And she did, and he got a job at GM, and so we landed in Midwest City.
Okay.
And so finished out my high school career at Midwest City, and immediately moved back to the DC area.
Yeah, you bolted.
I just
free. Let me back.
Yeah, let me free. I'm going back. I'm going back.
My buddies and all that.
Yeah. Everything, buddies, family. I'm going back, and I'm gonna live this big downtown DC lifestyle,
right.
and have a driver, that whole thing you make up in your head,
the fantasy,
the big city life,
right.
And so, but I did that, I moved back and tried to grow roots there, but soonly realized that it's different living in that area as a kid under your parents' income
when you got to pay the bills
compared to now when you have to pay the bills.
Yeah, for sure.
Definitely.
I was telling you, I had like the apartment that I lived in.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it was kind of in the ghetto. It was kind of in the hood, right? I mean, we had a Chinese carryout in the middle of our apartment complex,
which is like a dream and a curse.
Yeah.
Like I'm okay with that still, kind of, but that's me. But I get what you're saying.
Yeah. And I had a 3-bedroom apartment that our cousin stayed in. And at that time in 2001 or 2002, I mean, it was $1,800 a month, to live in that apartment complex, which was insane.
That's
insane. So it was tough to live, especially as a very young adult.
For real, yeah.
I don't think people realize just the concentration of wealth in that area. I mean, obviously DC, but when you go out into Maryland and you go out into the Virginia area, I mean, Fairfax County, where we were going to school, Fairfax County when I was there was 11th or 10th wealthiest county in the United States.
Right.
So to live out there, you have to bring some bucks home, unless
100%.
you want to live in an apartment with the Chinese
That's
takeout restaurant
convenient
next to
though,
it.
Man.
It is
Chinese food right there.
I'm
good with it.
But I did not realize that there was a such thing as a stay-at-home mom until I moved to Oklahoma.
Oh, okay.
Both parents have to work,
right. Yeah, no,
in that area.
right, yep.
There was, growing up, there was no stay-at-home moms. Both parents had to bring in income. I mean, they had to, unless obviously the dad was a very, wealthy breadwinner. But other than that, just your average, everyday people. I mean, I didn't even know that was a thing.
So when you were back in DC, after high school, did you go to school out there, or when did you make that jump?
Yeah. I went to school there my entire entire life.
Maryland?
So I lived in Virginia.
Okay.
I had family in DC and Southern Maryland, and so it's just one big metro area.
Yeah.
Southern Maryland, DC is in the middle. Maryland's on top, and then Virginia is kind of in the middle. Then you have this big highway that circles the entire Washington DC area into Maryland and Virginia. It's called the Beltway. And so, but I grew up in Virginia, and then I moved to Oklahoma when I was 15, so it was my sophomore year.
I got you.
Yeah.
So finished up high school, bolted back to Virginia, and then
Yeah.
so what happened there?
Yeah. So my wife Marissa, she called me one day when I was out there and said, "Hey, I got accepted to University of Maryland. Will you show me around?" And so, sure. So she came to do her visit, ended up actually going to school there, which is in College Park, Maryland. And 6 months to a year into her being there, we started dating and ended up having our oldest Taylor during that time that she was there. And so Marissa finished University of Maryland, graduated. And so when she graduated, we had a newborn.
Yeah.
And so
stuff to pay for,
right? Sure. And that newborn was in that apartment complex with Chinese carryout that wasn't the best to have a newborn in general, right? And so me growing up there and going to school there, obviously she was years from attending school, but as a dad now, especially to a girl, I started thinking about areas, like where would I put her in school, like what's the best area to live to raise a family around there, and I kept no, just kept Xing a lot of these areas and school districts out in school areas, and the only thing that was left was private school.
Yeah.
And we know, especially as young adults and young parents, that wasn't really established. That wasn't even on my radar. I mean, I couldn't even think about private school at that
I didn't even
time.
know any kids went to private school.
So couldn't even think about it. And so my parents were here in Oklahoma. Her parents were here in Oklahoma. And they were putting the pressure on us to move back. But she loved that area. I love that area. And we didn't want to leave. But with the circumstances we were in with that, with the small baby, the situation we were in,
expensive place to live.
I mean, we weren't established.
Yeah.
We were working, but nothing that paid anything great.
Right.
What were you doing at that time?
I actually worked for the Department of Agriculture.
Okay.
They have a huge Department of Agriculture facility in College Park, Maryland. And so at this location, it's where they did a lot of their agriculture testing. So you would see cows with holes in their stomach with plastic because they would like reach in and and then they would grow chickens and turkeys that were just massive. Right. It was, that's where they did a lot of their testing and stuff like that.
Wow.
And I did security there. So I was like security, so I had to go in all these buildings and all the labs. I get to like walk in and see kind of all they were doing, just doing my patrol,
People trying to jack over the big chickens.
It sounds like there's some things you want to unsee in that place, man. That's crazy.
100%. It was some cool things and some things you're like,
I think that turned into KFC, right?
Yeah. So that's what I did. I did security at the Department of Agriculture, and
getting
my wife
heat from your family to move back.
Yeah, getting heat from the family to move back. So we did. We decided it was the best move and moved back. And I was telling you the story. So we moved back from $1,800 a month, 3-bedroom, 2-bath apartment in the hood, to a 3-bed, 2-bath, single-family home with a backyard in Midwest City for $600 a month.
Yeah,
I'm in.
You right?
I'm
sold.
In.
Right? Sold. Right? 2-car garage, driveway, backyard, house, single family, $600 a month. And so that was eye-opening to me. Now I'm an adult, right? Now, now it's like, okay, finances, you start thinking about things like that. And it was just an eye-opening experience making that transition back here. It was eye-opening making it there.
Yeah.
It was really eye-opening making it back here.
For real, yeah. As an adult.
So I had to weigh that dream of mine of suits,
driver,
downtown, that whole thing to, okay, now I have a child. Now I have, a significant other.
Right.
Now I got to start growing my roots and making some type of establishment somewhere. And
at least you got a backyard and a driveway.
Yeah.
That's a hell of a lot different than Virginia, I'm sure.
Yeah.
So is this about when you started in the life insurance game?
Yeah.
I like this story. This is a cool story. Tell me a little bit about that and how you were successful in that business.
Yeah. So, I didn't know what to do. I knew I didn't want to work the traditional 9 to 5. I had that in me, I just had to figure out what I wanted to do.
Yeah.
And so not sure how I ended up taking my real estate course and exam. I have no idea how, but I did. And, took my test and had nowhere to go.
Yeah.
I went and talked to some of the big companies. At that time they were too fancy for me.
Yeah.
Like you walk into like New York Life, high rise, and
right.
they're greeted with 3-piece suits, and they were just too fancy for me. And I knew I didn't want to take that route. I don't know how I found this guy, but his name is Stephen Thornhill. He owned a small independent insurance business. I don't know if it was God or Will or something like that, but it was one of the best finds I could ever have. I walked in his office and, I was in probably like a hand-me-down,
you were in your court
oversized suit that did not fit me.
You were in your court suit.
Yeah, my court suit.
That's
was way too big for me.
The baggy shoulder pads.
Yeah,
for sure.
Yeah.
You were going to court.
I was going to court, and walk in, and immediately his presence, I was drawn to. Really cool guy. Long story short, I went and worked for him, and didn't know what to do. So I said, tell me what I need to do to be successful. And he said, go around and ask everyone for their old leads, and let's start there. So that's what I did, right? I walked around to all the agents that were in there making calls and asked for all the old leads, and I got them, and I started making those calls, but it wasn't really doing anything for me.
Right.
It wasn't really producing a whole lot of results at that time, and so I don't know. About 30 days in, I walked into his office and I said, "All right, man, listen, I tried this. I want to know what made you successful.
Yeah.
What did you do to get to where you're at? Because that's where I want to be." I get the old leads and making calls, but what did you do specifically if you were to tell me one thing?
Yeah.
And he said, I'll tell you, but you're not going to do it.
Challenge.
Challenge.
Yeah.
Challenge. And I said, okay. He said, this is what I did. I went to certain demographics of the city, and I door knocked. And I sold this one product, and it's basically called a burial policy.
Yeah.
It pays out $20,000, and it's about $40 a month, right? Small policy. But in certain areas of the city, he said it was the most successful because that's who were buying it. In those particular areas, most people don't want to go door knocking.
Yeah, okay.
And I said, well, I'm from Washington, D.C.
Yeah, been there, done that.
Been there, done that.
Yeah,
Okay,
doesn't scare me.
At one time, Southeast D.C. was a murder capital of the world.
Right.
You know, and I had family in D.C.
Yep.
So
Yeah.
we knew no better, right?
Yeah.
And so I said, so what you're telling me is to go door knock in these areas and sell this policy? He said, yeah. And that's what I did. And I did it for about a year and a half and had so much success in doing it. I built so many relationships with that community. I was getting invited to cookouts and things. I mean, belly to belly, in my opinion, is the best way to do business.
For real,
right?
yeah.
It builds those immediate relationships, puts a face to a name, it does all of that. And so I did that, you know, and I did that, and then I became a team leader, and I became a supervisor, and I ran a small group, and had some success there.
Yeah.
I really did.
You did the work there.
I put in the time, I put in the work, and I established some good business habits. And he was a great mentor for me in general, just in life.
Yeah, right? Sounds like it.
Just in life. So
yeah.
That was the first phase in my establishing my business.
What do you think what do you think the most important thing that you picked up from him was?
Work ethic.
Yeah.
Thinking outside the box. Doing things that the average person won't do.
Yeah, that's what I was
right?
thinking.
Yeah.
That 1%.
Yeah.
The 1% do what the other 99% aren't doing.
Yeah.
You know, so just establishing that good work ethic and that 1% mentality.
And that's something that carried on into your current career, I would assume.
Oh, 1,000%.
Yeah.
1,000%, you know.
Yeah, right on. So then you did the work and you made it to where you were with them, and so obviously you don't do that anymore.
Yeah, you're not slanging life insurance or burial policies anymore.
No.
So what happened? What made that move?
It got old.
Yeah.
It got old, and I didn't have any more challenges. And here's why I got old. It didn't get old because it became boring per se, because I was still building relationships and I was still having fun. But if you've been in the life insurance business, or if you know anything about it, talking about death every single day is not fun.
Yeah, I can imagine.
Building relationships are. Creating income for your family is fun.
Sure.
But talking about death every single day is not fun.
Doesn't sound like fun.
It's not.
Yeah.
That's why I don't work at a funeral home.
Nobody wakes up in the morning thinking about buying life insurance.
Fair.
Nobody does.
I didn't. Not today.
No, not at all, man.
You know,
and I had a similar experience too. You know, when I left the company that I was at, and just managing claims and managing teams that handle that. You're dealing with people on their worst day, and that has a cumulative effect, a compounding effect on you when you're constantly trying to problem solve for people that are having a really challenging situation happen. And, not too dissimilar from what you're doing. You're talking about something that is inherently uncomfortable for people to talk about.
Correct.
So
every day.
Yeah, but
every day.
Yeah, every day. But kudos to you, because that life insurance. I mean, I'm in the insurance on the sales side now, and that's just not something I have a desire to do, and partially because of that very fact. So kudos to you for being successful in that space, because that is a really challenging segment of insurance to be in.
100%.
That's 100%. A big. I mean, to me, when I hear this story, that's why I like that story so much, because that lets me know. Like, we're doing a Beyond the Bio, but it's like that little piece right there, I feel like I already know who this person is. It's the guy who's going to go do the things that nobody else wants to do. That it's the make it. He's like a burn the ships type of guy. You know what I mean? Like, we're making it or we're not. Or I'm going to go out trying. I dig that kind of thing. That's one thing. That's why we get along, is I like that mentality. It's no excuses. It's let's go do the work. And people that don't do that frustrate me. You know, the excuse makers, people like that. That frustrates me, and so I like that about you. I think that's an awesome trait, which I think you've been able to. You're now in a spot where I think, and we'll get to that. It's a little out of line, but where you're now taking that mentality and putting it towards in a mentorship type of capacity, which I think is pretty awesome.
Yeah.
So tell me what happened there. You're here. We've got, the life insurance. So obviously a shift happened.
A shift did happen, and it was me just hitting that wall. And during that time, during that time, I was actually going to school and actually got my degree. My wife was pushing me to do it just because, not necessarily that she felt that I needed it or that I was going to go get a job, but just to show that both our parents had degrees, we were educated, and to just to set that standard for our kids, And so I went back and did that.
I like how you just slid in a degree.
Yeah.
Shit.
Yeah. So went and got my degree in business marketing. Can't remember how that combo worked, but it was like a combo of business and marketing. And really, sat down with dinner with a friend of mine that was in the business. And after I graduated, he said, "So what are you going to do? Are you going to continue your 1099 work for yourself, or are you going to look for something more established towards your marketing degree?" And I said, "I wish I could do both."
Yeah.
And he said, "You can. And it's called real estate." I said, "Yeah, but this whole sales thing," because remember, in insurance, I had to sell someone on buying insurance. Right. He said, "Think about it. No one, like I just said, no one thinks about insurance, but everyone thinks about purchasing a home.
The American dream.
Everyone looks at real estate. Everyone wishes they could have this house. Everyone wishes a goal of theirs is the American dream to purchase a house.
For sure.
You don't have to sell anyone on purchasing a home or selling a home. It's just what people do. And so when financial crises happen in people's lives, the very first thing that go are their insurance policies. The last thing that goes is their home, right? They try to figure out anything they can do to keep their home.
Scratch and claw
To keep their home, And so with insurance, we were getting a lot of, people canceling their policies and things like that. But a home is more of an establishment. And so it opened my eyes up. And I thought, I'll give it a shot. Why not? So went to the whole thing again and took my real estate course and became a realtor. And so when I did that, I went right to him and I actually joined Shane Willard.
Yeah.
I think he was on this.
He's been on the show.
He's been on the show. Walked in Shane's office and, became a buyer's agent for him. And it was the best decision I could have ever made in my real estate career.
Why is that?
Well, I think every agent should join real estate either in some type of team or mentorship program, because when agents hit this tough industry and they don't have a mentor or a team lead or someone to really spend time and showing them this business, they get thrown in the wolves, they get ate up real fast.
Yeah.
And Shane was able to provide me with instant people to talk to.
Opportunities, right?
Instant opportunities. He was able to mentor me. He was able to show me the ropes, how to do business the right way. And it created a really good foundation for me.
Yeah.
I mean, it really, really, really did. It helped me out a ton. And it launched me to the next phase of my business, was creating my own solo business.
Yeah.
And so, love Shane to death. Loved him at that time. Still love him. It was time for me to move on. And the biggest reason was I already understood the business part of it. I understood building relationships. I understood the value in building that part of it. I understood the hustle and the grind that it takes to build a business. I just needed to learn the language of real estate, the contracts, the process, the steps.
The steps. We were just talking about that. The steps.
The steps, right? Yeah. Because if I've got to know the steps in order to be able to communicate the steps to my clients.
Sure. Yeah.
And I got to know it at a high level.
Yeah.
And I got to know all of the cracks that could fall, all of the things that could happen, right? Not just the steps, but all of the things that could happen in those steps. And I've got to be able to eliminate those and solve those problems.
It gives you the reps, right?
Reps.
Got to have those. That's what I tell everybody, man. I mean, you can learn everything, but until you get reps, until you get the on-the-job training, until you get real-life scenarios with a real person, and trying to solve real issues for what we've already discussed as the biggest purchase in their whole life, that does take some damn reps, because there's going to be failures.
There's going to be failures.
There's going to be mistakes, but getting through those, learning not to do them again, that's massive. So I mean, that sounds like what you got with Shane.
Yeah, 100%. Shane was building a business of buyer's agents, and he still has buyer's agents. There was a time where I just felt like it was time for me to move on and grow my wings into a solo agent.
Yeah.
And that's the time that I moved over to Keller Williams.
Yeah.
I lived in Yukon at the time, and I lived there my entire time I was at Century 21, traveling back to Midwest City. That's where I went to school at, so that was my route. So naturally, that was a good transition, or a good start for me. At that time, they had just put a KW sign on a solo building, because they used to be in like an office building. I had no idea they were there, and it was right across the street from my house. The office was literally right across the street from my neighborhood.
Okay.
And they were just putting a sign up, and walked in the office and said, "I just getting ready to get released with my brokerage, and I'm looking for a new one, and I'm ready to start my solo career." And I walked in that office, and that's when it all started. That's when the launch started.
How much time in had you been in real estate when you moved over to Keller Williams?
Maybe 6 to 8 months.
Wow. Okay.
Maybe. I mean, it was less than a year. It was less than a year of that.
So do you think that, would it be true statement that you kind of had maybe in your mind the reason why you left, but the reason why you wanted to carry on? And did you have something in your mind that was bigger? Did you have like an end goal, or did this goal like continue to build as you started to learn?
It continued to build. I don't think I didn't have the vision yet. The vision wasn't there. The end goal wasn't there.
Yeah.
It evolved. The end goal evolved. Right. I had no idea that I even was going to start a team or want to start a team. It just fell in my lap, and it happened. Right. And so at that time, my goal was just to really just continue to grow as a solo agent and continue to learn and build my skills, and that was it.
Yeah.
You know. And then within 6 months of me being at Keller Williams, 7 months, it wasn't that long, all of a sudden I started building this team, and really had no idea I was doing it.
Yeah. What happened?
Yeah, so I had an agent walk into my office and said, I don't know what happened with her team or what happened there. Something happened with the team she was on, and said, I'm a great buyer's agent. I have nowhere else to go, and I really don't want to have my own solo career.
Right.
Do you need a buyer's agent? I said, no. And she said, would you be open to it? And I didn't really even know what that looked like. You know. And so I reached out to a few people, talked to the broker, talked to other people,
right
and
now?
said,
Is that me?
Yeah. And I don't know what happened. I just said, yeah, let's figure it out. Together.
That's what I would have said.
And so we figured it out together. You know, and so she had probably been in the business just as long as I have. I think we came in the business almost exactly the same, and together we formed this team.
Yeah.
And then we, hired an admin, and then I really started digging into the Red Book with Keller Williams, you know. And then Matt was a trainer there at that time, and so I felt like I had a lot of good resources at Keller Williams at that time to help build,
support some growth,
some support and growth,
Did that also is that somewhere where because there's always, to me, there's a shift. You can be a realtor anywhere.
Yeah.
You can buy and sell real estate, but to take those deeper dives, with some of the stuff that they offer and make you start thinking a little bit more, right? That's when you start thinking about maybe coaching, or maybe that there's more to it than just how many people can I sell a house to.
Yeah.
There's some, a little psychology behind it. And I know that's something that you are very much into. The coaching, the mentoring, did that start over there, you think?
I think it started when I started growing my team. I really started getting a passion for it, and here's why. When I would close a deal, it would be a deal close. Zero some emotion, right? I mean, I was excited for my clients and things like that. But when I had a buyer's agent and they closed a deal, it got me fired up.
Yeah.
It got me fired up. I celebrated her way more than I celebrated myself.
Okay.
And that started the passion for the coaching and mentoring and development of other people versus myself, right? So, leaders eat last, and that's kind of, started diving into that and
so that's when you kind of decided and learned that maybe your role, or maybe leadership is something that you could excel in.
That I could excel in, right? And so I went from reading and listening to sales books to leadership books and leadership podcasts and really diving into that leadership, self-education. Self-education is
absolutely
huge. We were talking about that earlier before here, of the continued education that we have to continue to do. And so I started diving into those, and we all read books, so we know if a book's not very exciting to you, you can get through 4 pages and be in la la land and not even know what you just read, right? And that was the sales books for me. But when I started diving into leadership books and mentorship books, and I was engaged. I was engaged to it, and that was the trigger for me knowing, okay, this is the direction that I need to be going in.
Yeah,
this is the direction that excites me. This is what gets me up.
Gotcha.
This is my why, right? This is my why. And so we'll probably dive into whys later, but there's 2 different whys. My first why of why you do what you do, what gets you going, that was established at that point.
Yeah.
That why, and so my why was serving others, helping other people to be successful, developing leaders, and other people.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, man, I like that when that why comes to you. A lot of people seek it out, but when it comes to you like that, it makes me think that is 100%. A lot of people can make, like, I'm gonna do this, but if it comes to you like that, I think that's pretty awesome, man. I don't know that I've had a why come to, maybe outside of Ashland, like that just showed up, but like when it comes to you like that, I think that's pretty badass.
And it has to be different for everybody. It has to be unique.
Oh, yeah,
and it has to be organic. I mean, you can't just adopt someone else's and think that you can start a fire with that. That kindling has to come from you. And
and you bring up a really good point there. Is so, like, if I were to ask you to, let's just sidetrack here to somebody if somebody's listening to this that is a realtor, brand new maybe, what are like 3 tips you might give a new realtor that's starting out? I mean, I know you kind of touched on one as far as joining a team. You can't use that. 3 new ones.
Solo agent, if outside of growing a team, whoever, you've got to build a foundation somewhere. You've got to start with a good database or CRM to start your foundation. Mm-hmm. It blows my mind the amount of people who do not have an established CRM or established database. That has to be the foundation of your business, right? And you've got to feed that database. Not only do you have to have a database or CRM, it has to have the capabilities to put things in it, meaning it has to have the capability to feed itself. Mm-hmm. Right? You've got to be able to put people into that database, and then that database has to have the technology to be able to continue to communicate with that person.
Yeah.
While you're not, right? So for me, that's one, is establish a good CRM, a good database. People always ask me, what's the best database? I don't know, the one that you'll use.
Yeah, the one
typically
the free one that
the free one that you'll use.
That's perfect advice right there. Yeah.
Every day.
Yeah.
And again, that establishment started, if you talk to Matt, he'll tell you the same thing when he was coaching. You got to start with a good CRM and a good database. You have to. The second thing would be, you've got to create some type of good habits and do it on a consistent basis. Mm-hmm. Habits, right? Habits. You've got to create good habits, and take those habits, those good habits, and implement them into your business. Meaning this. If one of your goals is to generate buyer leads inside your CRM, well, you got to create good daily habits to be able to do that on a consistent basis, mm-hmm. right? Habits and consistency, 2 big buzzwords for me.
Yeah.
Habits and consistency, right? No one should just be out here winging it. The agents that just wing it don't have databases, don't have CRMs, don't have good daily habits. they're out here just trying to figure it out.
Don't have careers in real estate for very
long.
Don't have careers in real estate for very long.
Don't have any money.
Right.
100%.
Yeah.
And the third thing would be, and this is probably cliche, but build a lot of relationships and build them deep.
Okay.
Build a lot of relationships and build them deep. The last thing you want to do is go out just chasing online leads.
Yeah.
The people who could do Zillow, Realty.com, and, all these leads, I do them, so I'm not saying they're bad.
Can't be everything.
But it can't be everything. Mm-hmm. You've got to go out and build relationships and build them deep. Creating a good brand is, starts that. You've got to create
your brand
a good
is your
brand.
name when you're out there like that.
So just elaborate a little bit on that third point then. So what are some of the things that you did? What does that relationship building look like? I know every individual is different, but involving yourself maybe in community organizations? Is that what did that look like for you?
Whatever,
right.
Getting out there.
100%. It goes back to, and I skipped this, but it goes back to when I had the insurance. When we're out door knocking and getting into that community. Mm-hmm. When I was in that community, I was embedded in that community.
Yeah.
Right. I knew people. I was getting invited to local events and things like that. And so I in turn took that over into my real estate career.
Okay.
And one of the things that I coach and teach young agents and my team is to door knock.
Yeah.
If I were to say, if you had to go sell or close one deal and your life depended on it, what would you go do? What would that look like? How would you go get that client, right? My number one thing would be belly to belly, door knocking. I'm going to go door knock 200 homes. I guarantee you, if I took 8 hours a day and I door knocked 200-300 homes, I'm going to find a deal.
You're probably going to find a deal.
I'm going to find a deal.
Yeah.
Right? If my life depended on it. That's what I'm going to go do. So the answer to your question is getting involved in your community is the same way. Door knocking is a great way, but also just getting involved in the community. A thing that we did was a food drive, right? We would door knock for a purpose. So when I teach about door knocking, we don't just go out there and just door knock. We door knock for a purpose. And two things we did. One, we created a food drive. So we would door knock and we would donate to a local food drive.
Sure.
Put the box out, say, next Thursday we're going to come pick them up. That's a good way. We would door knock around open houses. So we would door knock and invite people to the open house, right?
Oh,
so
very cool.
On a Sunday from 2 to 4, if you're doing an open house, show up at 1 o'clock and go door knock, right? Go door knock and invite people to the open house. It's a great way to start plugging into a certain neighborhood or a certain community. Just creating that establishment, that belly to belly.
Building referral bases.
Yeah,
Building
and
referral bases.
That's really good. That's good info, because I think that I've noticed myself is a lot of people do rely on the lead gen. A lot of people do rely on somebody else to give me this opportunity instead of creating them.
Right.
So creating opportunities, it was what it does. Anything, when you're doing the things, you're knocking on doors, whatever, that's one more person that's met you today.
Correct.
Right? That's one more person that's heard your name today, that knows that you have some sort of value or offer that they may or may not come across. And that's really just getting back to the old school way of doing things, but it's what works.
It's what works.
Yeah.
It's what works.
See, that makes a lot of sense to me. So
it's just being proactive.
Yeah.
Right? Instead of being reactive, agents need to be proactive instead of reactive.
Yeah.
A lot of agents are reactive. They just wait. Okay. Like, example, a lot of realtors, we call it the 3 Ps when they take a listing, right? They put a sign in the yard, they place it on the MLS, and they pray another realtor sells it. Right?
That sounds right.
And I tell my sellers, I do the same thing, but I add the 4th P, which is proactive. You're going to proactively go out there and market your listing. Like, we're going to go proactively knock on doors and introduce your listing to the entire neighborhood. The entire neighborhood is going to know your house is for sale.
Yeah.
Like, we're going to proactive market your house. We're going to proactively put your home in front of people, whether it's through whatever social media channel. We're going to put it in front of their face instead of them having to go out and search for it. Right? Proactive. And another big buzzword, we need to be proactive and not reactive.
And as long as you're establishing, your second point, establishing those good habits, falling in love with the process, a proven process that works with a CRM to support you, and you're executing on those things, then logically success would follow as long as you're consistent with that.
100%.
So, yeah, love that.
100%.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense to me. I mean, tell me a little bit. Tell me something that I like to ask a lot of folks. And it doesn't have to be one person. Don't feel like you're stuck to one person. But in your life today, in your everyday life, who is somebody that affects your life the most?
That's a great question.
It's a tough question.
Yeah, for sure.
You gotta say, let's assume wife, daughter out of the way, all right?
Yeah.
All the kids. But outside of your family, who's that person that affects your personal, business, whatever life? Who has an impact for you?
Who's holding you accountable?
Yeah. There's a few people. There's two mentors that my business career. One is Stephen Thornhill, the original insurance owner that really helped me.
The first challenger.
He's still in my life to this day.
Really?
That's
He's
awesome.
my biggest cheerleader.
That's awesome.
If you go look at my social media posts,
Yeah.
he's almost on every single comment.
Yeah.
Telling everyone how great I am. Go look on my post, and you'll see Stephen Thornhill all over my comments, telling everyone how great I am.
That's cool.
He's a cheerleader.
Is he still in DC?
No,
he was here.
He's
Sorry,
here.
yeah, my bad.
He's here. He's a cheerleader.
Yeah.
Calls me all the time, right? Still adding value to my life and just in general, like the other one is John Kitchens. John Kitchens. You can sit back and listen to John talk for hours.
We have.
Right? You have, right?
We have.
Yeah.
I have one-on-one conversations with them every week,
Yeah.
and they're powerful.
Yeah, I mean, that's
Within
going to be the highlight of your
time,
week.
I leave that conversation ready to go run through a wall.
Yeah.
Right? I'm fired up, He leaves me with very challenging homework
Yeah.
that really challenges me, but I know that I need to do it because on the next call, he's going to expect
That it's done.
the results and that it's done. And we can't move on to the next phase of growth and development of me and my business until that one's done.
So you're coachable.
Well, 100%, right? I mean, 100%.
Yeah.
I'm coachable because I have to be coachable to my coach to expect people to be coachable on my coaching to them.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, something I've always, I've heard this from when you're talking about consuming leadership, books and podcasts and those sorts of things, is in order to influence others, you have to allow yourself to be influenced. Mm-hmm. It's interesting if we go back to when we started this conversation, you had a mom and dad that were both working. So you've had that work ethic or examples of that work ethic kind of throughout your life, early life, which I think is tremendously important. And I think that, unfortunately, there's a lot of people that don't have those examples or they choose to ignore them. So that's awesome. And then, that theme of coachability and willing to do things that are outside of, that other people wouldn't do.
Yeah. Yeah. 100%. I think, my parents both working and still do really, really instill that blue collar mentality in me,
right.
Of a good, strong work ethic,
And there's no coincidence that the first guy you went and worked for was Shane Willard. That's the first thing that popped in my head is he was sitting here talking about working at the Dayton Tire Factory.
Yeah, coming from a blue collar background into real estate, what a juxtaposition to go from that world into this. But if you don't have that blue collar mentality in real estate, you won't survive. There is a grind, especially now in our current market, all of the things you talked about, having the CRM support, having the consistency and the habits, and then, making sure that you're coachable, but you also have to have the willingness to go knock on doors, to be proactive. If you don't have those pieces in place, then you really need to sit down and evaluate, is this a fit for you? The life insurance wasn't a fit for you, but you took all the things you loved about that deal, and then you moved it into something that is more in line with what motivates you every day. So,
and I think the blue collar, both parents working, middle class help, but I also realized that I didn't want to be that.
Yeah, I know exactly what you're saying.
I didn't want to be that. It was fine. I mean, I 1,000% appreciate that my upbringing, but I knew I didn't want to be that.
Sure.
I knew I wanted to do something different. I'm not going to say more because that's a bad word. That's negative towards that.
It's different.
Just different.
Different.
Sure.
I wanted to do something different in a different way, in my own way. I knew I had a deep enough why, and I knew why I wanted to do it, and I got up every single day, but I just wanted to do it different, and I wanted to do it my way and no one else's way. And I didn't want anybody to control that direction for me. I knew I needed help with that direction, but I didn't want anybody to control it.
That makes a ton of sense to me. Let me ask you this. Because I know that if I'm a new realtor, for instance, I know that you're somebody I could come to, right? You can be someone's Shane or the life and Shane. People are now coming to you. What's the value add that you bring to a realtor that would come to you and say, help me?
Yeah. I think I have a great upline. I have great mentors myself that help me move in the right direction, that pour into me, which allows me to take that and pour into other agents. So it's not me just trying to figure it out on my own.
Yeah.
I'm not out here just nobody's like no support, no self-education, no continued development, trying to just do it.
Yeah.
I do it all, right? So I have continued education that I'm always learning. I have great mentors in place that are pouring into me, and we're moving in the right direction. So I take all of that and I turn around and I pour it back into my agents, right? I pour it back into people who need help or want help, right? I heard a great saying in a podcast a few weeks ago that I listened to.
Was it the WAIL podcast? Probably
it wasn't that one.
Keep going.
And it said you are most powerfully positioned to serve the person you once were. You are the most powerfully positioned to serve the person you once were. I think the reason Stephen Thornhill was in the best position to serve me because I was him.
You're right.
Yeah.
I was him in his early 20s.
Yep.
And he knew it. That's why he's still in my life.
Yeah.
And he served me and he continued to do it. I feel like I found that person and I'm trying to find more of them. But someone came to me in his early 20s just recently in my life, right? And I saw myself in him.
Yeah.
He was young, hungry, had some direction, but not a lot, but knew where he wanted to go, knew he wanted to be successful. And I was in the best position at that time to serve him. And I have been mentoring ever since, and he's been growing like crazy, right? And so now my mission is I need to go find more people like that.
Right.
Because now I'm the most powerfully positioned in my time right now to serve those people. 5 years ago, I wasn't. When I first started real estate, I wasn't. I had no direction. I had no vision. Now, I'm to a point now where I can go serve the person I once was, and that gets me fired up. That's my why.
Yeah.
Okay. And then your other why is finding your why. Finding your why. You start with why. That's the first start. And then the next level to the why is finding your why, which is why should someone do business with you?
Exactly.
Why should someone follow you?
Right.
Why should agents join my organization? Why should sellers trust me to sell their home? Right? That all comes in with your finding your uniqueness, developing, your identity, creating that identity, and then creating that little slogan or that little piece that you can just say to people that just grabs their attention and that separates you, right? Point of differentiation. How are you different, right? That all kind of boils into really the Simon Sinek book.
Yeah.
Find your why. You start with why, but then the next book is find. That's the power. That's the powerful one.
Yeah.
Find your why.
Well,
read that book.
And just like as you create a referral base and with actual clients, as you do that, if you can execute on that and deliver on that promise to the people that you bring into your organization, you create disciples. You create a referral base within your organization to go out and seek other talented folks that are hungry and want to accomplish those goals too. So that's a fire that feeds itself. Yeah, it's pretty awesome.
I mean, like the person I was talking about is Ryan Dunn, and now he's going out and he has the confidence now because he knows he has a great upline. He has great support. Now he's going out and he's bringing people into the organization and pouring into them. Now he's creating his own little group, and he has a great following that people are looking at him saying, hey, I want to be where you're at, right? He came to me and said, I want to be like when you're at. Well, let's get into that direction. Now he has people coming in the organization following him in that direction, right? Yep. I still pour in him every single day, and now he's able to go back and pour in those people, right? It's that cycle. It's that healthy, good cycle that that you get into with leadership. Help your front line build their front line. Help their front line build their front line, right? And now we just build leaders.
Yeah, that's pretty powerful, man. I mean, so that leads me kind of like to wrap this up a little bit. It's kind of a broad question, but. And we'll keep it like towards the business world, but tell me the thing about your life that you're the most proud of.
So, man, this will choke me up probably a little bit, but
that's fine.
It goes back. Everything goes back to the start. When I had my daughter at early 20s, and we're in the DC area and living in that apartment complex. And I was searching for areas to live, and I couldn't pick one because the areas in that, now don't get me wrong, DC and Virginia area is beautiful. It's a great place to live.
Yeah.
But to live in the areas that I really wanted to live in was a dream. It wasn't even reality. There was no way I was putting my kids in those school districts, in those neighborhoods, because it wasn't, my family didn't live in those areas, so I didn't think I could. But now, the neighborhood I live in are those neighborhoods in that area that I just would have dreamed to live in. Now I live in that neighborhood.
Yeah.
Now my kids go to private school.
Yeah.
Right? We live in a nice gated community, a really nice home. Not to brag, but I'm just telling you.
It's a reality.
Kids go to private school. So that dream that little kid had, or that young adult in his early 20s had, that I could never fathom of having, I have it now, and no one gave it to me. I don't have rich parents. They didn't hand me that stuff. I went out and earned it. I worked hard, and I earned it. And now my kids were able to live that, that lifestyle that I dreamed of them living.
Beautiful.
It's awesome. Well, and we've had, Sarah Teague Brule was on here, and she was, very. All the things you've talked about, she shared was, these are things that you actually do. It's not just talking about it. There's action there, and she was incredibly positive about your systems and everything. So, yeah, man, awesome, great story, man. Fantastic.
Yeah, thank you,
man. I think we've got to know you, and that's the point of this, man. I really want to really appreciate you coming by, man. Loved it. Loved the story. Until next time.
Yeah,
we're done.
Thanks.
All right. Cool. Absolutely.
Thanks for listening. If you like what you heard, stay up to date by subscribing and following us on social media. See you again next week.